Are work from home jobs legit?
First and foremost, as humans, we always want to make things more difficult than they are. So because we weren't taught any other way, people thought that work from home jobs were like this unicorn situation. I have seen work from home jobs out there for the last like 25 years. Like it's existed since then. Of course, it has increased more and more and more through the years, but it is something that people are there's still scammers out there, and there's people who haven't done the homework to figure out where those legitimate jobs are. My recommendation to anybody that's looking for a job, although we don't recommend it necessarily because we want you to come over here into freedom. For legitimate work from home jobs, go right to the source. Like, think of any potential reputable business that you can think of: Facebook, Instagram, Wayfair, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Disney, Apple, Hyatt Hotels, like anything, right? Like Capital One, Discover Card. Like, think of any business that you can think of and go directly to their website. Usually it's on the bottom, but sometimes it's in the hamburger menu at the top, where you go and you look for their job section, their job or career section. You are going to go to that section. Either it's going to be really small and you can just scroll through it, or if there's a filter or a search function, you are going to type in one of these 5 keywords. You're going to type in work at home, work from home, telecommute, remote, or virtual. And you're going to be able to find the jobs in that way. Stay away from Indeed, LinkedIn, or ZipRecruiter if you don't know how to spot a scam. That's just, scammers use free platforms. So that's where you're going to encounter them. They're posing as real companies. So just go straight to the source. Can't be scammed if you go straight to the source.
Which freelancing skill is best for beginners?
The best freelancing skill for beginners is whatever skill you're experienced in. There is no right or wrong. There is no best one besides the one that you are already good at. We encounter this all the time. We see lots of advertisements in our newsfeed. Come be a bookkeeper. That's the best, lucrative career. Come be a proofreader. That's the best lucrative career. Come be whatever. Stepping out into being a freelancer or a business owner or entrepreneur, or however you want to refer to it, it's a hard enough mindset shift to move out onto your own, away from being an employee. But it's even harder if you are trying to do something completely new and then trying to be a newbie at the thing and a newbie into freelancing, and you combine the two, and that is really where people are going to have a hard time shifting. So we recommend here at the Work from Home Revolution tapping into what you're already good at, taking a piece of your job that you already are comfortable with and moving over to freelancing. And then when you are comfortable with the process of freelancing and doing your own thing, then you can pivot and go and learn something new so that you can grow your business or enhance your skills or start a second business. But that's the best way to get started.
Is work from home getting more miserable? Why?
So I think that depends on the people. I could literally not leave my house for weeks at a time. But then there's people like Nicole who thrives on being around people. So is it miserable or is it getting more miserable? I think it really depends on a person and their situation. I, for one, enjoy being at home. We homeschool, my kids are there. And so I get to live every day is different. I get to do what I want to do in terms of my business, both the freelancing business and the work from home revolution. Like, I get to do that, as well as e-commerce. I get to tap into any multiple things that I want to do. I have friends all over the world that I get to contact via internet. So, I mean, I literally can have conversations with someone in Malaysia and Canada and the US and like all over the place in a day without ever having to travel or leave my house. Like, it's amazing if you tap into the resources of being at home and you do it in such a way. A lot of people are like, oh, wouldn't you get lonely at home? Well, yeah, you might get lonely at home if you're working a job and you are restricted to your camera. Like, Nicole and I have had this conversation before where we found out people actually have a camera on them the whole day in their home on them because the employer feels like they need to micromanage them and babysit them via a camera, which is just extremely intrusive and appalling all at the same time. But when you are your own boss, when you get to work when you want, I mean, heck, me and the kids went for a walk today at 1:30 in the afternoon. And as we're walking through the neighborhood, like, boy, it is like, there's nobody out here and it's super nice. Well, duh, everyone was at work and at school. And there we were, like, enjoying the neighborhood all to ourselves. So yeah. I mean, if you work in a job, it might be miserable. If you were an extrovert, maybe you might not like it. But me as an introvert, me as someone who has a lot going on and I can stay busy, I 100% love it.
Yeah, I thought this question was interesting because, again, I would also agree that it depends upon who you are. If you are an extrovert and you need people time in order to maintain your sanity, like me, then sometimes it can be hard and lonely, but also don't have to deal with office politics. So there's that. I was legitimately shocked and appalled when I learned that there were employers who were developing ways to monitor their employees to make sure they're getting stuff done. Like, I don't think that employees should be milking the system. I've seen that. I've seen people like, "Oh, well, I put something on my mouse to keep the clicker going and I went and took a nap." Like, I don't you're you kind of are being paid for your time. You need to be responsible with it. But, like, in my mindset, like, if I'm getting my work done, why do you need to watch me do it, you perv?
I always feel like somebody's watching me. I
Like,
mean, it should be
it's
reflected in the work, right? Like, it should be
yes.
reflected in the work. And if you're not producing, then maybe have like some sort of stipulation where you're like, if you're not producing XYZ so that we can see what your functionality is and your commitment to this, then saying like, then we might need to implement some sort of a system. But I think just right off the bat to immediately assume that everybody is going to be some slacker and to not give people the benefit of the doubt, especially adults, and especially adults that you have checked references for and called prior employers for. And like, if you trusted them enough to hire them and bring them into your company, you should be able to trust them to not micromanage them and just really dive into that. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's like borderline. I don't
So,
know.
like, for me, that would be absolutely miserable. If I
Mhm.
sneezed or my internet went out, for my boss to be like, "You weren't on your," like, that would be like, this seems like the epitome of micromanaging to me.
Right.
And like, control, like the golden handcuffs, right? I wanted to get out of that because I don't like, I'm a responsible adult. I get
Mhm.
my stuff done, whether you without, preferably and better, without you watching over my shoulder. Like, why did you hire me if you don't think that you can at least trust me to be a functioning adult?
Right.
Like, so that would make me more miserable.
Yeah,
it
for
it
sure.
can also be miserable if you're lonely, but I find that there are ways to combat that, like having community outside of work. I thought that I would really miss having coworkers every day, and I miss the conversation sometimes, but I don't, and like, I miss some of the people that I used to work with, like that relationship that builds. But what I found is I'm able to find other ways to build relationship. I'm able to get that met in other ways. And so, is
Mhm.
it getting more miserable? I think that depends upon who you are, how you're wired, how you are working remotely, how you're working from home. If you are, are you getting your needs met in other ways, or are you becoming a hermit who just stays in their house day after day after day and doesn't talk to anybody?
Right. And
Um,
again, I think that goes back to if you're an employee versus entrepreneur, right? If you're an employee who's chained to your desk, I can see where it would be miserable because you don't have your coworkers and you're chained to your desk, and being at home really doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, yes, you're home and in the comfort of your own home, but if you're an extrovert, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. Like it might make you feel trapped. And so but obviously the way that we work at home as an entrepreneur, we're not tied to a schedule. We're not tied to our desk. We can work at 6 a.m. or 3 a.m. Like we can decide that for ourselves. And so I think, for entrepreneurs is working at home miserable, I would have to say probably not. For employees working at home, I can see where that would get old, where they don't have that separation. Because for us, we teach that becoming an entrepreneur is a lifestyle, right? Like it's every part of your being. It's who you are because you're tapping into your God-given talents. It's tapping into the skills that you have and the things that make you happy and give you joy. And you're able to, work around your life, right? Like instead of trying to live around work. You actually get to work around your life. And so we get to be with our kids and we get to work when we want. And so I think that, with that being a lifestyle, we intertwine it all, right? Like we're homeschooling, we're entrepreneurs, we're building several businesses. And so there's a difference there where people who are an employee, they don't have the same passion about their job as they would if it was their own business. And so I can see where a lot of people need that separation between home and work. And they don't get that. Where as an entrepreneur, the whole point is to build the life by design and create that whole lifestyle as a unit. So I would say that if you were to go and survey employees versus entrepreneurs, I'm guessing that the answer is going to be split down. You're going to have a very, most of the people are going to say, yeah, I'm kind of sick of being at home as the employee. And the entrepreneur is going to be like, no, like, I love it. So that's kind of my thought on it.
I like to tell people I've been Zooming from home since before Zooming became the new normal and became the thing the
Right.
cool kids did, right?
Right.
So that kind of like plays into like the last kind of question that I wanted to just throw around between the two of us. Can working from home cause depression?
It could I'm not somebody that struggles with that, so it's hard for me to speak to that. But I would say that, it could if you're not using your resources wisely. And again, I feel like depression plays into, obviously I type mental health report. So, I have some sort of vision into this. And what I see a lot is people that fall into depression don't necessarily have a goal or a purpose and they feel stuck. Um, because I think there's levels of depression. There's the depression, the biological issues, right, that you're going through. And then there's circumstantial depression, which I think is also where, that's based on people they feel stuck. They don't feel like they're in growth. They feel like every day is the same thing over and over, like they have no purpose. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that there's that distinction there. And so for the people who are growing and building something on purpose, I think again that how are you using your time at home? What kind of a person are you, and what are you doing to facilitate guarding against that? Are you somebody that needs medication to ward that off, and being at home is allowing you to be comfortable so you stop taking the medications? There's so many different factors that a person could jump into with this. But I do think, again, the line can be drawn between entrepreneurship and growth and passion and enjoyment and having a say in how you're designing your life, versus employee, where you feel like you don't have a say in your life, where you might feel stuck, you're not getting the promotion, you feel like you're not good enough because you aren't getting that raise or things like that. So I think that there's very much the difference between a biological depression and a circumstantial depression. And it depends on which way you're talking.
I love the way that you parsed through that. I personally think that depression, and from what I've learned and from what I've lived, depression is like multifaceted and has like multiple different like contributing factors to it. So like I've tended to be lower when I'm not taking care of myself, when I'm not making sure that I'm being like doing the things that I know I need to do to foster happiness in myself. And those things are, being creative. Basically, it's being creative. I need to be creative like I need to breathe. And it's connecting with God. And it is connecting with people, feeling like I have a purpose in connecting with people, feeling like I have a purpose outside of myself, outside of, whatever I'm struggling with, outside of whatever is negative and bad in my life. I need to have a purpose outside of that. I need to have meaningful connections with other people. I had a date night with my husband this weekend, and it was the first one in a while. And the next day I got up at 9. I got up at 8:30 or 9, which is kind of atypical for me lately. And I put on some music and I started cleaning my kitchen right away. Who does that right away in the morning? Crazy people clean the kitchen right away in the morning when they wake up. Not me, not me. And I'm dancing and I'm just moving and grooving. And I was like, why am I so weird today? Usually I like to ease into my day a little bit more, but nope, I was all gung ho. And I was like, well, the difference would be that I really spent some really good time, just me and my husband, just connecting with him and just laughing and joking and just spending time together and not being pulled in every direction from by my kids, and not, stressed out by their needs. And so it was really interesting to me to see just how much that connection
Mhm.
really energized me.
Right.
And and I mean, for 48 hours afterwards, I like to call extroverts the energy leeches of the universe. I feel like the introverts, they go home, they go to their little safe quiet space, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. They go to their what was this, their fortress of solitude, right?
Mm.
And then they go deep, and I don't know, look at themselves and what they do. I don't know. I have very little insight into myself sometimes. And so they do whatever they do when they're alone. And then they come out and they engage with us extroverts, and we suck it right out of them. We're like, woohoo, party time, people. And we just feed off of it, I swear. And then they're dry and depleted and they need to go back to their fortress of solitude and create I don't know what the extroverts do with it, except I don't know, party with it, eat it. I don't know what happens to it, but that's my theory. And
Yeah.
so can it cause depression? For my personal experience is that it helped me come out of depression. It helped me come out of what I felt, when you talked about just the cycle of everything being the same every day. That's when I started freelancing, is I was in the depths of a depression that came, a postpartum depression. And that helped me to come out of it, having a purpose, having a function, having needing to make connections, needing to build my business and grow. That really helped me come out of it.
Yeah, I think another thing too that I think people underestimate. So I know sometimes we refer to the Bible, right? If if people don't have a vision, the people will perish. If you don't have a vision, the people will perish, right? We talk about that a lot. One of the other things that I don't think that people talk about enough is, an idle mind is the devil's playground. When you
Yes.
have too much time on your hands, and again, this goes back to purpose and growth. If you have too much time on your hands, right? If you're sitting at your job for 8 hours a day, or even if you're sitting at home for 8 hours a day, and your job is mindless, it's a repetitive job, it gives your brain no ability to grow, it gives you no purpose, right? If you don't have anything beyond yourself to focus on and to think of, you have an idle mind. You're not doing anything with it. Where with entrepreneurs and with freelancing, you are thinking about Like, how can I grow today? How can I get better? What self-development do I need to dive into? What self-care do I need to dive into? Like, you're learning a different way to live. You are purposefully trying to find ways to make your life better. And especially when you are a freelancer and you were working with other people whose goals are to make life better, right? And so I think that that is a huge one that people underestimate, is an idle mind is the devil's playground. If you are not growing, if you are not purposefully and intentionally learning, because we are humans, we are meant to learn, we are meant to grow. And if you aren't, and you are staying stuck, you are staying sedentary, you aren't doing anything that has purpose, you are going to start to drift into a depression because you are not fulfilling your purpose here on this earth. Right? Like, we all have a God-given talent. We are all meant to be here for a reason. And if we are sitting every day on the couch and not doing anything with that, it's going to allow you to fall into that, as well as your brain is a muscle. Like, our natural instinct as human beings is to look for danger, to look for the negative, right? Like, that is when it was cavemen, it was like, you come out of your cave and you're looking for danger. Like, what animal is out there going to attack me, right? Like, you are in survival mode. Like, that's what human beings do. But now we're in an age where we don't have those same dangers, but it's our instinct as a human to be looking for those dangers. So it's immediately like, oh, that's a scam. They might scam me. They might steal. They're like, you're looking at all of these things negatively through this negative lens. And if you're not aware of the way that you are looking at the world, if you are always looking for danger instead of looking for gratitude, if you're always looking at the glass is half empty instead of the glass is half full, if you're always looking towards the negative, that's where your brain is going to constantly focus. And again, that's where depression is going to creep in. But if you're somebody who's always looking for, why did this happen? Like, what's the good in it? I'm going to be grateful. This is why my cup is, half full. Like, I need to grow. I want to become better. If you're always on the move to be growing, your brain is not going to be idle, and you're not going to slip into the negativity. So I think it's something that people have to be conscientious about. It isn't something that just people are just happy, right? People have to work at it. So I think that's something that people underestimate as well. And so then when you start focusing on being sad or being depressed or being miserable with where you are, if you aren't conscientiously working to change that, your brain is just going to keep going, towards the negative, because you're not actively growing. So that's kind of been my view on it. And just seeing, 20 years worth, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of reports. You have people who, can come from abusive relationships that look at it as like, I'm a victim and it's awful. And then you have the people who in the same circumstance are like, this is what I learned. And so I'm going to empower myself, and I'm going to like take my mess and I'm going to turn it into my message. Right. It's the way that people look at it. Either which way are you looking at it and how are you growing? And I think that's really a big thing. So that's my little rant on that.